Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Leslie. Shabbat Shalom, Autumn, who is our new director of, I have to be able to say this faster than I do, director of online community and advocacy. And Autumn.
DOC&A.
DOC&A, okay. So we'll be introducing Autumn a little later, but just felt like the kind of night that we needed to gather each other. We needed the faces around us. Steve.
Let Us Be the Ones by Rabbi Neil Umswedge. When rage and violence blight this land, let us be the ones who exemplify calmness and kindness. When democracy is attacked, let us be the ones who defend life and liberty. When voices of selfishness speak, let us be the ones who listen to voices of decency. When fear is spread, let us be the ones who bring comfort. When division is fostered, let us be the ones who unite. When civility is threatened, let us be the ones who protect it with our words and deeds. When decency is reviled, let us be the ones who embrace it. When evil in the human heart expresses itself, let us be the ones who reveal humanity's goodness. For if not now, when?
Good Shabbos, Edna and Sean and Myra and Angela and Ruben and Nancy and Lori. Good Shabbos, everyone. So definitely one of those days, definitely one of those weeks that we need more light. So what a moment to have Shabbos. So we're gonna have Leslie. Thank God you're here with us, Leslie. Like I feel better just seeing you right there, even if it's on this tiny little box on my screen. Somehow it feels more like Shabbos being with you. So we're gonna bring in the light on a tough day. Right, on a tough day for America, a tough day for our community. We lost Jack Oglander, of a blessed memory. A dear, dear friend of Leslie's, of so many of us. Grew up right here in my neighborhood. Former president of CRC, really impactful president, and just a beloved, wonderful human being. The world's not the same. And so we got to have extra light. we gotta have extra light. We gotta shine a little bit extra for Jack too. So, Leslie, if you'll shine a little light as we light these candles. We invite anyone, if you're there, to light the candles with
Let me
us.
go get some.
Take light into yourself. Spread the light into our terribly broken world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshon b'mitzvotav v'tzivonu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat v'tzivonu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Leslie. And here comes Karen with light for us.
Okay.
So,
I heard the blessing even though I was getting light.
we're short on matches, so other candles are our matches tonight. Yep,
And the stovetop.
and the stove. So, so there's this custom. There's this custom that mourners aren't a part of Kabbalat Shabbat, that they actually wait outside. We were in a conservative shul for a couple of years, and it's lived there, and it's really powerful. Because Kabbalat Shabbat, there's something about it, those melodies, the joy, right, just the simcha of it all. Sometimes we're not in a place for it. It's not where we are. So mourners aren't a part of it, but they come in for Lechadodi. They come in for Lechadodi, and what I keep thinking about is that there's a requirement that we have Shabbos, right? That we welcome Shabbos no matter what else is going on. And I think that's the power, right? That for one day a week, even though we've been putting aside joy, even though it doesn't feel appropriate, even though it doesn't feel right, for one day a week, we put down the schmutz, knowing it will be waiting for us, right, after Shabbos to pick back up, but we put it down. So even mourners. Oh, hi, Violet. That's our dog busting into the room. Come on in. Oh, it's appropriate. We talk about the Shabbos bride and we refer to Violet as princess. Only ironically.
Only ironically.
Yeah. So, appropriate that this week of all weeks we need to have Lechadodi. We need to have Shabbos. We need to set a time apart just to be. Shabbat nekabela Olecha dodi likras kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Shabbat lechu v'lecha ki hi makom habracha merosh mikerem nesucha sov maseh v'mashvat tchila Olecha dodi likras kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Olecha dodi likras kala B'nei Shabbat This melody is actually known as Nigun, Lincoln's Nigun. I think you can kind of hear, right? Can't you hear America through it? Hitoreri, Kiva orech umi uri shidaberi kevod Adonai alayich nigla Olecha dodi likras kala Shabbat nekabela Olecha dodi likras kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela. So with the final verse, we traditionally welcome Shabbos like a bride, like a sacred guest coming through. Shabbat Shalom, Rachel and the Delston crew, and Em and Alana and Sarah. Shabbat Shalom, Brenda in Arizona, and Debbie in St. Louis, and Michael, my beloved teacher, Dr. Dulik in Honduras. So we welcome all of us as the guests of Shabbos, and we welcome Karen back from putting the dogs somewhere where we can't hear them barking. Oive Shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam B'Simcha Utzola, Toch Emuneh Ham Segula, Boi Chala. Olecha dodi likras kala B'nei Shabbat nekabela Olecha dodi likras kala B'nei Shabbat Shabbat Kabbalat B'nei Shabbat Good Shabbos, Adrian, a friend from Bradley days. and Dory and
The Chakis.
the whole
Carol.
Chakis crew.
Oh, and Ken.
Oh, Ken and Carol. Good Shabbos, everyone. We have the chat up, if that wasn't obvious, so that we can.
So be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Good Shabbos, Sarah.
We're watching.
So appropriate, I think, that we come to Baruch Hu, because Baruch Hu is a sacred orientation. Right? It is literally, traditionally, everyone turning towards Jerusalem.
East.
Towards the east, if Jerusalem's in the
Jerusalem's
east.
for us, it's we turn east.
Right? Yeah. We're used to saying east. But that's
You're right. That's
it's
true.
It's too Ashka normative of you.
Uh-huh. Actually, yeah. Keep going.
But I was struck. I keep thinking about this idea of Baruch Hu locating us, because Baruch Hu, we turn towards the same place, so we're connecting and we're identifying with those all over the world, right? Wherever they are, we're connecting with them. And yet also Baruch Hu traditionally requires a minyan, right? It requires 10 Jewish adults. So in that sense, it requires us to orient in this broad, imaginary way. And I don't mean imaginary dismissively, because, right, our imaginary socially constructed categories like Jewish people are incredibly important. But it requires us to orient ourselves broadly to Jerusalem. But the minyan also requires us to orient to our local community. And I'm so struck by, like, in this crazy world of pandemic where we're all faces on screens, how much more important I think this is, that we find ways of orienting towards each other, particularly local community, whatever that means, when every place is just as far away as everywhere else. So we say these sacred ancient words of orientation, Baruch Hu.
One prayer I constantly find myself drawn to is Ma'ariv Aravim, or Yotzer Or, depending on the time of day. Just the idea that days end and days begin, and even on the worst days end. And even the best days end. And this cycle, this rhythm is a part of our prayer service. We say a blessing over evening coming, and then in the morning we say a blessing over the sun. It's just a part of our nature to be a part of this cycle. And so we acknowledge it with Ma'ariv Aravim, and I'm going to read the whole poem of Evening the Evenings. It's actually a part of a larger piece of poetry by Rabbi Gila Raphael.
Ages of our lives, Ma'ariv Aravim, Amen.
Sacred words, even the evenings. Wisdom opened gates locked around our hearts. Asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach sha'arim. Evening the evenings, evening the frayed edges of our lives. Ma'ariv aravim. Understanding alters with the times, changing seasons, cycles divine. Uvivuna mishana itim umachalif et hazmanim. Paint diamonds on the canvas called sky. Soothe our souls with a lilting lullaby. Umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtsono. Rolling into the night, rolling away the light. Kolel or mipnei choshech. Kolel choshech mipnei or. Spirit of the night, we bless your name. Eternal light, eternal flame. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed.
Evening the frayed edges of our lives, Ma'ariv Aravim, Amen. Ma'ariv Aravim, Amen.
So, one of my favorite parts of, sorry, I think I jumped. Are we going to the Shema? Are we going to do, yeah, okay. So sorry, I thought I jumped to prayer. One of my favorite parts of being a rabbi, hands down, is working with kids. I just love it. I love the things that they say. I love being a part of their lives. And so I've really enjoyed, I taught in the kibbutz, which is the 5th and 6th grade, these past couple of years. And this year, with everything moving online, I've really gotten to be more of a part of services, the service that happens before the kibbutz. And it's so much fun. It's 3rd through 6th graders and a lot of their parents.
Let me tell you, that's where you wanted to be Wednesday night. With the turmoil in America, let me promise you, the place you wanted to be was on that Zoom with those kids and Rabbi Karen and Rabbi Randy. It was a place of comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in giving comfort to the kids, Rabbi Randy delivered a beautiful message about being minches. And one of the things we talked about is what it feels like to be scared, and that Judaism offers us something to say when we are scared, and that is the Shema. We talked about mantras, and one of the students said that she has anxiety, and she's learned to create a mantra for her anxiety. And I immediately said, I also have anxiety, and I use mantras. And so, whether or not you have anxiety, whether or not your anxiety has just been brought on this week by the craziness of the past few days, whether you're just struggling right now, the Shema is the Jewish response to needing a mantra. It's one line, it's something you can say under your breath, it's something you can say as you take deep breaths. There's actually a combination of the words Shemantra. So it really is, our ancestors said it in some of their darkest times of their lives, when they were the most fearful for their lives. And for us, it can be that one line that we say when we need to feel safe, when we feel like we need to take a deep breath. So we'll join together in the Shema.
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema 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 Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. And so we recommit ourselves to being the people we want to be and living the values we want to see in the world with the words of V'ahavta, as we say together. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'beitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochpecha uv'kumecha ugsatam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafo b'einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher Hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. So maybe we'll bring everyone on. I'm going to turn off your audio so we don't get echo. But when you have something to say, wave and shout and holler in a visual way. Yeah. So as we enter into Micha Mocha, right? The rabbis taught that we had to pause before we had the Amidah, before we move into the political part of the service. We had to pause to remember the Exodus from Egypt. This week, I think it's particularly easy because it's our Torah portion Shmot, where we enter into this story for the very first time. We have the beginning of the book of Exodus. So Karen and I were talking earlier about Shifra and Pua. These two women who gave birth and saved a generation, right? These two, not handmaids,
Midwives.
Midwives, thank you, yeah. Thank you, the word wasn't coming to me. These two midwives who were in the worst of situations, were in the worst of worlds, right? They were in a world where literally children were being murdered, where children were being kept in cages, right? Maybe not so different from the world we're in sometimes. Where we looked out and they saw the worst of awfulness. I don't want to call it the worst of darkness because Rabbi Randy's the first one who said this to me, right? There's problematics, there's racial problematics with the language of darkness and light. And actually I kept hearing, right, with what happened on Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? I kept hearing that people were saying what a dark day for America this was. And there was a professor of religious studies, I wish I could remember her name. I saw her tweet out, this was not a dark day for America, this was the whitest of days for America, right? So I've been thinking about Shifra and Puah. Those midwives doing what they could, where they could. People who had, right, like all the structural things stacked against them. As women, as midwives who were working amongst the Hebrews, right?
Disobeying the orders.
Disobeying the orders, right? These are people with no structural power. There's a midrashic debate as to whether they're Egyptian or Jewish, and I always like the exploring the ethics of that, right? How that changes the whole situation. Whether you're helping people who are more like you or less like you, but in the end, these are two women with very little structural power who looked out at a world unsure of how they could change it, and they said, I can change it right here. And I think that's Micha Mocha, right? I think that's why before we say the Amidah, we take a moment to remember being strangers, to remember being enslaved folks in Egypt. Because it's the only way that we can say these words as they're meant to be said, I think.
We continue with Hashkivenu, a sukkah, sukkach. I said that wrong. Within Hashkivenu, we say sukkach shlomecha, which means a sukkah of peace. And I don't know about you, but the image I'm drawn to when I say sukkah is the sukkah during the holidays. This fragile, temporary structure that we forget to take down. And usually like the top blows off of it and then the walls start coming down. And it's fragile. And it's interesting that like that's the image that, you know, in this prayer that we're asking God to spread over like this shelter of peace, this sukkah shlomecha. And I think it's such a beautiful reminder that peace is also fragile. That just as we constantly have to protect our sukkah from the wind and the rain and for us the snow, from all the outside elements, we also personally have to remain on guard and protect those structures of peace that we've worked so hard to build. Those that are in our homes and those in our communities and those in ourselves. So, Hashkivenu.
another lifetime, one of toil and blood. And darkness was a virtue, and the road was full of mud. You came in from the wilderness, creature void of form. Come in, they say, give you shelter from the storm. Haskeveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom v'havidenu somreinu lechaim ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Haskeveinu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom. So we take a minute for Shabbos. We take a minute for Shabbos. This of all weeks, we take a moment to, as much as we can, to like put aside the outside and the external and the schmutz and the other and all of that stuff. We take a moment to stop being people who create and control. I thankfully I've been much better the last year or two, but I spent a while where I really was gripped almost every night by panic attacks, like awful, terrible, rip you out of your sleep panic attacks. And one of the things that it feels like is that you have to control everything, and all of a sudden you can control nothing. And Shabbos, in the biggest, most meta sense, is one of those things that brings me back and centers me, because it is a moment where we are supposed to exhale, where we are supposed to be, and where we are not supposed to be do. We are not supposed to be controllers or doers or changers, but just beers. So we take a moment this week of all weeks for Vishamru. Oh, maybe Vishamru. Nope, it's gonna go away. Will you hold that down?
We gotta hold it the whole time. Oops,
Sorry.
sorry. Whoops. Got it.
Vishamru v'nei Israel et Shabbat lahasor Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ישמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. This is the day that we relax and refresh and renew. שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל השבת, לעשות השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם, לדורותם ברית עולם.
We take a moment for prayer as we move into Tefillah, the Amidah, this time to turn inward, to think about those things that we want to pray for. Maybe we can't even pray, maybe we aren't even there and we just want a moment to breathe. Take some deep breaths. Whatever you're looking for, I hope you're able to find a moment of community and a moment to turn inward.
Good Shabbos, Julie and David. Excuse me, Davida and Paul, Stacy and Ed. Good Shabbos, everyone. Adonai, Sifata Tifta, Ufi Yagim, Tehilatecha, Havaya, Sifata Tifta, Ufi Yagim, Tehilatecha, Adonai, to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Havaya, Sifata Tifta, Rufi Yagim, Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Bilha, Elohei Zilpa, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Kone Shamayim va'aretz.
At the end of Tefillah, we have a prayer for peace. This is a poem I've read a million times, and yet when I read it after the events of Wednesday, it spoke to me differently, so I wanted to share it with you all. It's by an Israeli poet, Dalia Ravikovich, and it's called Innocent Memory. Only when the faces are erased can you remember anything here in its fullness. Only when the faces are erased. The lights go wild. Colors exceed their frames. Stars plunge from their heights like epileptics. Grasses of the earth moan. Their growth pains greater than the pangs of wilting. All the things that blind our eyes retreat into the shadows, the faces too. Something stirs in the depths. How many days, years, thunderstorms have we waited for this to burst out from the depth of the earth? One innocent memory, bright red as a rose flower. We take a moment for a prayer of healing, a Misha Bera, for anybody who needs extra strength, emotional strength, physical, mental, whatever blessings we need to send. We send healing prayers. I have some names, and then we do have the chat up, so if you'd like to list names of people, I will look at it after I read these names and add them to our list. Rick Hack, Gail Rock, Evan Richards, Carrie Schulman, Susan Schroeder, Ron Fagerstrom, Debbie Zarinsky, Dr. Richard Byrnes, Julie Stevenson, Toby Schreiber, Everly Ray Bierman, Corinne Char, Meredith Berkowitz, Gail Hollifield, Tom Fox, Michael Davenport, Dick Fine, Peter Fishman, Sherry Hugler O'Donnell, otherwise known as Cher DeLune, W. Hodding Carter III, Roshan Batman, Erwin Pollock, Kay Wolpert, Bob Cohn, Louis Kidder, Norm Polsky, Peggy Brockman, Leah Babette, Rhonda Banford, Andy Neiman, Tom Collinger, Zach Collinger, Judy Markey, Dr. Powers, Chaco Guniva, Ann Rudy, John and Karen DeGuire, and Gerald Chervitz. And Suzanne Cooper McGill, Sean's
Sean,
parents,
both of your parents have COVID. We're sending love to you and to them.
Clara McLeod, and Carleen Dubin, and Maureen.
And I'm thinking of, I spoke to a woman, Erin, tonight, who's with her daughter. They're here from Chicago. And her 15-year-old daughter's a children, Jordan, who she's here on hospice. And so we send love and strength and peace
And the Oaklanders.
to the whole Oaklander family.
Whole Oaklander family.
Misebera avon denu koha uracha limo tenu. May the blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misepera imotenu v'kol abrecha le'avotenu, with those in need of healing, with refuah shlema, renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. So we say, Baruch atah Adonai rofeh hacholim, blessed is the source of healing that calls us to be healers in this world.
Amen.
And so we take a few minutes to talk a little bit of Torah.
I'm going to quickly go remind our children we're leading service.
Oh yeah, go remind our children. I don't know if everyone else could hear our children, but we could very much hear our children. So hopefully we're the only ones who heard the delightful sounds of their merry play, or whatever it was like that. So I'm going to start. Let me see if I can find the button. I just want to bring on Autumn to start. There you go. Hi, Autumn.
Hi.
So first of all, I'll say a little bit about your work in a minute, but will you just give a quick introduction of yourself to everyone here? Autumn's new at CRC. I'll give you the title, the headline. And they are the Director of Online Community and Advocacy, or you can switch that around, Director of Advocacy and Online Community. That flows a little better, maybe. Anyways, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Autumn. My pronouns are they, them. And I am new to this role at CRC, but I've been attending CRC since very early March. So I'm just excited to engage with the community in a new way. I'm originally from Nashville. You'll only hear my accent if I get really upset. And I like religion, I like philosophy, I like weightlifting, and social justice stuff. So that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, philosophy, weightlifting, and social justice. It's a logical and natural combination. And am I remembering correctly, you were a roller derbier, right?
I was, yeah. These posters behind me are bout posters. I played roller derby for about 5 years in Nashville and in St. Louis. My derby name was Sinister Minister. Had to retire because I have bad knees now.
Love it.
That's amazing.
So we're really excited to have you here. You're going to be, well, Autumn's going to be, for everyone who's out there, a part of services in Facebook or YouTube or wherever land. Autumn is going to be the new online community manager, director, coordinator, whatever word we put there. And what that really means is that Autumn is going to be there to make sure that we have a laser focus on community when it comes to everything that's happening online, to make sure that we're not lost in the technical, but that the technical serves the creation of really meaningful, authentic Jewish community around CRC values that can happen in these online spaces. So Autumn, thankfully to an onboard grant, a grant from the Onboard Foundation that CRC is taking part in, Autumn is going to be here for 2 years. So we're really
at least,
yes, hopefully not much longer than 2 years.
Much longer.
But I should say we have a grant for 2 years. With my point being that this online community is not about the COVID world that we are in right now, but actually imagining a post-COVID world where still anyone who wants to or needs to can connect with CRC, regardless of their geography or their ability to physically be in the building. So that was my like quick and dirty definition of that half of your work. You have other thoughts on them? Other pieces of your work you're excited about? What are you thinking about as you think about this?
Um, you summed it up really well. I'm excited about everything right now. I'm just a big old ball of joy. So I can't wait to, kind of settle in, figure out all the different pieces. Everyone who's watching right now, I'm the one you're talking to in the chat. So hopefully we're going to be able to create all of these sorts of different opportunities for more meaningful engagement. And I'm really excited to be here.
I promise we are at least as excited to have you here.
And y'all be seeing a lot of them on all kinds of things CRC. So I hope you get a chance to meet
That
Autumn.
was so Tennessee of you. That was like a lot
I'm
of
with
y'all.
my partner in crime here, Nashville, Memphis.
Yes.
You're in the minority now, so
Excuse
you better
me.
watch out.
Excuse me, though. I've learned that it's only in St. Louis that Nashville and Memphis could be friends. If we're back in Tennessee, it would not be right. So, anyways, let's talk a little bit of Torah. We have the beginning of Shemot this week, right? The beginning of the book of Exodus, of this great narrative that really forms the core of the grand Jewish story, right? This story of enslavement, degradation, redemption, and the march towards freedom. And of course, right, like the story starts over and over again. We never enter into the promised land in our reading. We always start back over in Genesis, right when we're about to enter. But I've been thinking a lot about it's a metaphor I made earlier on in this presidency and in this pandemic, that I think in many ways, as we see Moses, we are seeing something of the American Jewish people. A group of us, and I think I should note, this was particularly easy for Ashkenazi Jews. This was particularly easy for Jews who are white, which I guess Ashkenazi Jews does not include all white Jews. But this was always easy. But I think at some level we were like Moses in that we were in the palace. We grew up in the palace thinking that we were at home there and thinking that this was a place that we could be at home or should be at home. Right, I think of this today as sort of the palace of white supremacy in the United States. And I am so struck that at this moment we are in, when literally, right, the white supremacists have stormed the palace in a storm of whiteness, how much so many of us who believed we could be at home in the palace of America are now seeing that that's not, profoundly not, where we belong as an us in that palace of whiteness or the palace of American usness, but in fact in a much broader coalition of those being oppressed by white supremacy, right? And it is this crazy, wonderful, amazing, beautiful, diverse coalition of all of these different folks of different backgrounds and different cultures brought together by white supremacist oppression. So anyhow, that was my metaphor for the day. I'd love to hear Karen, Autumn, whomever, thoughts
Let
on
Autumn
this.
go. I've shared a lot. If they want to go first.
Yeah.
You want to jump in, Autumn?
Yeah. So a thought that I've had as I've been reading the past couple of, parshas, right? When I was reading all the stories about Joseph, really having a great relationship with Pharaoh, I found myself feeling surprised. I've read all these stories before, but it's been like 10 or more years since I read them recently. And so I was like, wait, what? We were on good terms with Egypt at one point? I guess I totally forgot that because I remember the Exodus story so much more. And I think it's interesting to kind of hold those two things together at the same time about, remembering, it's that returning, that remembering. That's why we read these things in cycles, right? It can be really easy to get comfortable feeling like, things are going okay, we're safe. And, hopefully that we will be able to live in a world one day where we all are safe, but it's reality to have those reminders that, this is a strange land that we're in. This is not a time or a place to feel comfortable. It's a time to be activated and to remember, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And so I'm really excited about this next chapter of our story in the Torah, where, you know, they kind of have to be reminded of justice. Yeah.
I love that. Particularly like that connection to Joseph. I'm now thinking that, but the other thing about Joseph is that Joseph is a moment of political and economic success and access. Uh, and how fragile it is doesn't seem to appear, right? Like that's how Exodus begins, of course. A new king came, arose over Egypt, right? Um,
One other thought that I had.
yeah.
So on that, when I was okay, so I'm a Bible nerd. So right now I'm reading Robert Alter's translation of the Hebrew Bible, and
Which
one
is
note that
awesome.
he made.
We
Anyone
read
who
it.
doesn't have it,
Yeah.
go get it. It's awesome.
Uh-huh.
So
This is
I
the
don't
complete
yet
one.
read Hebrew.
It's pretty new. There's this new complete one, right? Yeah.
Came out a year ago. And I don't read Hebrew, so I love when he tells me, "Hey, here's like a really unique thing about the Hebrew." And one note that he makes is like in, I don't know, the first chapter of the Parsha, he says something like one of the words where Pharaoh is noticing that, like, oh, there's a lot of Israelites now, and I feel threatened. Like the word there is swarm, and it says it's the same word in Genesis like 1, 2, or 3, where it talks about the creepy crawlies on the earth. And it's just like this sense of feeling like, I don't know, that's just a really like, that's a lot of imagery right there of feeling threatened, but it makes me think about the covenant that Abraham has with Adonai, where it says like, oh, you will be like the sand on the seashore, right? Like, I don't know, that connection to the swarming. It's a very visceral reaction to a word, and I love it.
You know, you're so right. And a few years ago, I did a fellowship with the Religious Action Center in DC, a social justice fellowship, and they talked
This
about
is like the political action wing of
The reform
movement. Yeah.
and they talked about that word, Autumn, and they specifically mentioned that it does evoke that visceral response, that it's meant to make us sound like we're vermin, like we're swarming and we're threatening.
The
and
dehumanization, right? Within a word like that. Yeah.
yeah, you're so right to pull that out. And that's so much of this week's Torah portion too, is, you know, like we read about how Pharaoh and the Egyptians are scared that the Israelites are growing and becoming more populous and having babies and all of these things. And you know, when we read it at my program, we read it from the point of view of the Egyptians. What would it feel like to be an Egyptian and to see this people that, you know, they aren't really like Egyptians. They're not Egyptians. And to see them grow, and would you feel threatened? And it really led to an interesting discussion when you turn the tables on some of those things and look at it from the other side, especially today in America.
Yeah.
Can I bring out one more thing
Sure.
about the palace? So when you brought up palace, I thought of Birat
Birat
Leket. So there's this great teaching. You might have to say it. I'll try to say it, but you can correct me. That this palace, it's on fire. Like
it's comparing Abraham.
Yeah, there we go.
You want me to tell the story?
You tell the story.
It's one of my favorite midrashim. And what it does is it's talking about Abraham, and it says that Abraham should be compared to someone who is a traveler, who is walking through a strange land and comes upon a beautiful, sort of grand, wealthy palace that is on fire, is aflame. And this person starts screaming and shouting like, fire, fire. And it's only at that moment that the owner comes and is brought to attention and does something about this palace that is on fire.
And I kind of thought about that with Moses also. And I wonder how much of his worldview was the palace on fire until that moment when he struck the slave. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, yeah, hold on. Let me take apart that midrash a little more. So, right, I think we can use this midrash, this fire, for thinking about the structural isms of our society.
That we have
right.
to call, like we have to be the ones to call them out. Like,
but even more so, it takes a stranger who is not from that area sometimes to look out and like say this palace is on fire. But this has certainly been how I felt about right, like embarrassingly for how long it took for me. But like for me, this was a big part of the Me Too movement. Was all of a sudden looking around and saying, "Oh my God, this palace is just like burning down," and I had gotten so used to it burning that I just like thought that's how palaces were supposed to be. Okay, that was the midrash.
but I wonder, like with what you said about Moses, how much he felt like the palace was on fire. You know what I mean? Like he's growing up in a place that isn't his own. And I wonder if he sees that, like if he sees the palace on fire, or if it takes like that interaction with, to like, I don't know.
Yeah, he profoundly seems.
Autumn,
Oh yeah, Autumn. Hold on, let me
Are
unmute
you,
you.
you
Yeah,
want
go
to
ahead.
jump in? Sorry.
No, that's so interesting to think about. Because I wonder, I mean, just the whole interaction about like him being in the basket and like, you know, his sister and then Pharaoh's daughter, like all that sort of stuff. It's fascinating. I wonder if they ever told him that story growing up. Like, I wonder how was his identity formed? What of that did he carry with him? And so what all of that informed him so that when he saw, you know, an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, like what came to his mind beyond, I mean, clearly, I think it's pretty much inferred that he's like, you know, someone is beating up on like my people, my brother, I have to show up for them. But also like, what's the alternative? Like he could have not. So like, what would that have been like to be in that moment and realize like, you know, but then also there's the whole thing about like, oh, it's kind of murder. So like there's lots of ethics that you could, you know, dig into there. Lots of shame and good stuff to work through. But I wonder what he knew growing up.
Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah,
did they
you're
keep
right.
this story from him? Did they tell him?
We don't know.
Teenage.
What a like intersectional identity Moses would have had, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right, with all of these stacking notions of who he was and where was home or where wasn't home, or
especially if his, like they tell the story that his mom came to live in the palace and was his like
nursemaid. Yeah.
I mean, think about all the layers of his life, and I wonder, like when he noticed the palace was on fire. Like it seems like it would maybe be. I mean, you're right. There's so many ethical things involved in that moment, but I wonder if that was his. I don't know.
So maybe with that, we'll transition to Elenu, which literally means it's upon us, right? Like a reminder that this palace, and God knows this palace of America is on fire right now. That it's on us. Well, how about this for your teaching?
Oh no.
This palace that's aflame, this palace that's on fire, the Hebrew's not actually clear. It could be on fire, and it could be a palace emanating with light. So maybe that's our job, to take the flames and to turn it into light. So good light, yeah. So we do this with, we remind ourselves of this obligation with the words of Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hako, latekinu la'liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, velo samanu kimishpachot hadama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל לשכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו והנוד אמת מלכנו ופסולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבותה אל לבבך, Ki Adonai hu Elohim Bashamayim nima'al V'al haaretz mitachat ein od V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai L'melech al kol haaretz Vayom ahu Yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad.
At the end of our service, we take a few moments to remember those who are no longer with us. This is called Each of Us Has a Name by Zelda and translated by Marcia Falk. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. So we remember looking a little ways back through our community, Stan Zerman. We remember Virginia LaRocca, Anthony Sean Hikes.
And if there's a name you're thinking of, please share it in the
please
chat.
in the chat. Thank you for saying that. I'm reading the some of people off of our list right now. Sorry, I lost my space. Mary Ellen Mim Mavshin, Shirley Gerchin, Joel Leon, Jose Maria Velasco, Jeffrey Watson, Morton Wechsler, Carol Katz, David Levin, Greg Carlson, Judith B. Coleman, Lindsay Margulis, Benjamin Katz, Stephen Watson, Evelyn Rudin, Jonathan Kletnick, Michael Parker, Donna Kitchen, Arlene Mercer, Cindy Noster, Dr. Nellie Grosswasser, Madeline Iris, Louis Myers, Mel Padower, and of course, Jack Oglander.
And for Carolyn Altman, cousin of Ken Goldman, Jerry Berger, who died this week of a blessed memory.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie reminds us of the 5 who died
This past Wednesday.
the insurrection on Washington.
Mm-hmm.
For all these names. In this week's yard site, those folks who this is the anniversary of their loss. Lottie Barnholtz, Rachel Berkowitz, Gary Epstein, Ted Grazeman, Rose Siegel, Toby Udovich, Sally Baum, Philip Caulfield and Fred Fagenblatt, Evelyn Goldberg, Raymond Hyatt, Elnora B. Love, C.J. Pleitner, David Selesky, Earl B. Abrams, Calvin DeShields, Jerry Hyman, Irma L. Klein, Marion May Bloom, Thomas Burke, Sophie Kraselnik, my great-grandmother whose wedding ring I wear on my finger.
And who your new niece is named
Yeah, and
after.
who my new niece, my brother's daughter, Sophia Beth, is named after. Yeah, Sophie Kraselnik, Mary Jane Edwards, Louis Fernandez, Barbara Finlay Donahue, David Kogan, Helen Marks, Eugene Weiss, David Cadams, Jack Lipschitz, Robert Skorinka, Adina Talvi Goodman, Dee Dee. Can't believe it, Leslie. 3 years. Morris Tamarin, Stuart Williams, Preston Bank, Marcus Bluestein, Lucy Goldman, Thea Matthews, Barbara Sarbach, Stanley Tucker, Anna Zoll, Charles Aaronworth, Melvin Shapiro. For all of these folks,
One more.
for Michael
Michael.
Hunley,
Eileen Nissenbaum.
Eileen Nissenbaum, for all these people we hold in our hearts. OD, for all the names we've said, for all the names we haven't said. Yid Gadal, Yid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'oma Divra Chrute, V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon, Uvyomechon, Uchaye D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'gala Uvizman Kariv V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Ulamei Almaya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei D'Kudusha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbachata V'nechamata Damiran Be'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru. Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imru. Amen. We join with Leslie for a moment of memory.
Well done. You think you got it, Leslie?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
We can hear you. And I just want to add in Stacy Kramer mentioned Elnora Belove. Oh, whose name we mentioned helped to raise you and your siblings. Beautiful. So Leslie.
May the memory of good people bless our day.
Even though it's feels like a particularly heavy Shabbat, we have a few announcements that I'd like to share.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yes, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. We have winter outreach this Sunday from 1:30 till 3. And we're partnering with Winter Outreach because there are people who need winter clothing so badly in our community. What?
Louder.
Oh, the drive is going to take place in the CRC parking lot from 1:30 till 3. Boots, coats, hats, gloves, blankets, and toiletries, new or gently used, would be much appreciated. Also, you should know that we've been able to provide rent relief to people who have fallen between the cracks during the pandemic.
So if you or someone you know or someone you love or someone you're connected to needs help paying rent, please let us know. Email Alana, ELANA, at centralreform.org. And if you have extra that you'd like to give to help to support this and to support those who we have a sacred obligation to support right now, please just be in contact with Alana as well.
Actually, you can support rent relief on the general donations part of the CRC website.
Great.
So if you're thinking about it right now and you're able to give a little bit, you can go to our website and just mark rent relief, please. Just so you all know, we've been able to provide over $14,000 of support in the form of payments directly to tenants.
Directly to landlords.
I'm sorry, directly to landlords. I read that wrong. Directly to landlords on behalf of the tenants. So this is going...
So that there's no middle person that takes a cut, which often happens.
So, yes, if you're able to. And finally, along those same lines, if you're able to donate blood, there's a great need for blood in our community. So if that is something you're able to donate, you can go to redcross.org for more information. Tomorrow night, you can join Rabbi Susan and Jim for
Nope,
it's not
tomorrow
this weekend.
night. Tomorrow night at 7, though, you will be able to join Next Door, which is doing a young adults Havdalah, but we're going to broadcast it from my backyard, so we will broadcast it through the CRC channels as well.
Perplexing lunch on
Thursdays
at
noon. We're starting a new topic, a story of us, looking at the story of who were the first Jews and what did they say about where they came from and what did they believe about the world and how did they understand the divine? And then we're going to trace all of those questions through Jewish history. So Thursdays at noon. Wednesdays at noon, though, come and learn to play ukulele. It's not too late. Sign up, get a ukulele.
And Shabbat school resumes on Saturday. So if you have someone in Shabbat school or you know someone who has someone in Shabbat school, remind them to join on Saturday. And as always, we have Psalms with Rabbi Susan and Jim at 9:30. And this weekly meeting. Okay, there's a weekly meeting now on Sundays of No Shanda, No Shame. So you can find out more information on our website or by emailing Rabbi Jem. His email is james@centralreform.org. And he's also teaching Inner Judaism on Wednesdays from 7 till 8. One final announcement is this Tuesday is the second session, although you didn't need to go the first to go to the second, although the first was amazing, by our congregant and member Jill Delston, who's speaking about medical sexism. She wrote a book. It's amazing. She is a wonderful speaker. She was so engaging. She's so passionate and so knowledgeable. And so if you're able to join on Tuesday from 7 till 8:30, you're really in for a treat. So yeah.
So let's give each other a blessing. Let's bring back Leslie and Autumn.
Are we going to put him on the spot?
Yeah, I think we're going to put Autumn on the spot and make Autumn officially do one of these. Exactly.
They're ready. Look at that smile.
There you go. There you go.
They knew it was coming.
You knew it, exactly. So we'll do the first one.
Yeah.
Leslie, you're on for number 2. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May you be watched over and may you be kept safe.
And Leslie.
Yair Adonai pono v'lecha v'kuneka. Look into each other's faces. See other people's humanity.
Autumn, I just realized we're putting you on the spot with the Hebrew. You want us to do the Hebrew? You want to take a go?
I think they got it.
Go for it.
Wait, hold that
You
thought.
are, however, muted. You got to unmute yourself, I think.
Dang it. I'm so excited. Okay. I gotta wait for the thing to go away now. Okay. I just got a little box. Okay. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
Blessing.
And a final blessing to send us off with, please.
Go forth in peace with courage, good heart, and lots of love.
Oh,
Amen.
amen. Amen. I'm pretty sure that's how you get inducted to CRC.
Exactly. Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
shalom, everyone.
May there be more peace for the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.